Hi, this is today's live Q&A, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Today I'm going to be talking about how to make your home more Hygge, which is a Danish term, and that really translates to homely and cozy. And okay, we're in spring now and we're moving into summer, but there are still things that you can apply to make your home more livable and to make you feel happier. And I'm going to base what I'm talking about largely on a book, which is The Year of Living Danishly. I'm sorry, it's back to front. I don't know how to switch the view of this, but this is the book cover. It's The Year of Living Danishly by Helen Russell, uncovering the secrets of the world's happiest country. And in this book, she has one chapter which is devoted to Hygge and the home. And so how the Danish create their homes to make them more enjoyable spaces to be in, and in turn how that could translate into helping Danish people be the happiest nationality in the world. So I love the idea of Hygge, and I'm doing my certain things to try and achieve that in my own home, and I'll give you some ideas about what you could possibly do to achieve these things in yours. And so what she really starts off in this chapter talking about warm cinnamon buns and coffee, and we all know that baking and coffee, the smells of those in your home, certainly if you're trying to sell your home and you want to make people who are coming around really fall in love with your home and enjoy it and potentially want to buy it, then sticking some bread in the oven, and probably cinnamon buns would be even better, or putting on a pot of coffee. The smells of the coffee and the cinnamon buns are really appealing to most people. So think about those sort of scents in your home can be a really good way of achieving this like cozy, homely feel and this lovable feel, and that idea of you really want to be in this space. Candles and good lighting is another key thing. And there was sort of, as an overall summary, is looking at good food, good lighting, good drinks, and good friends. And then what does good mean? I mean, that is obviously a little bit subjective. So what's good for one person may not be good for another. And this is where it comes down to you and what you like. And what Helen Russell identified as a very common kind of theme amongst the homes that she was looking at when they were looking for somewhere to rent when they first moved to Denmark, was that all of the walls were painted white, all the floors were bleached wooden floors with underfloor heating, there was no clutter in sight, and they were really cozy. Like, actually the temperature inside these homes was really hot and warm. So those are some real basics that you could look to achieve. I mean, I personally I like a little bit of colour in my life, so just completely white walls. Great if it's quite dark and you want paler colours to sort of not feel like it's too gloomy, then a whiter or a paler shades can be really good for that. But I also love a little bit of a punch, maybe a bit of colour, a pop of colour people call it, to liven up the space. I enjoyed that, but that is something that is really deeply personal in terms of colours and what you love. And I think, yeah, great, using pale colours if you want to maximise light, but don't necessarily be restricted by that. And then good central heating, good doors and windows, and having no drafts. These are things that we can all aspire to create in our home. So making sure that our doors and windows are of good quality. It's worth spending a bit more and getting better quality doors and windows so that you're not losing your heat that way. Equally, having really higher levels of insulation than you necessarily need as a minimum will also help you to make your home cozier. And then there's the whole build tight, ventilate right approach, where you do everything you can to block off drafts so that you're not feeling that sort of wind chill kind of cool air blowing across you and making you feel chilly as you're sitting there. But equally, you do need to make sure that you've got ventilation in the right rooms. I've got other videos about that. I've talked about that before. So yeah, feel free to go and have a look at some of those. But certainly those are some of the things that you can do to the fabric of your home to make it feel cozier and literally warmer. In Denmark, they have these amazing district heating systems, and in the UK, those are very rare. So you're looking at better quality central heating systems. It really comes down to your boiler or the type of fuel that you use, maybe wood burning stoves and things like that to create that heat in your home. But you want to be looking at, first of all, reducing the loss of heat, and then and also then after minimizing the loss of your heat, then looking at better ways to create that heat. Then she noticed that all of these homes were really what she called rigorously neat. They were very minimalist, they were full of designer touches. Kitchen work surfaces were completely clear. Kitchen doors and cabinets and drawers had these soft close mechanisms, and inside of those drawers and cupboards they were really well organized with really good inserts so that you could easily find everything. And this kind of thing is there's a lot of minimalism and stuff people talk about these days, and I certainly think that, you know, having too much stuff, having stuff that you don't really love, that's just getting in your way and is making your life more difficult, making daily things more frustrating, making it harder for you to find what you need quickly, all of those things, it's just a waste of your time and effort. So certainly I think having a really good declutter is something that is worth considering. It also, one of the things that I find a lot of clients come to me asking for is more storage space, and so they're spending a lot of money building extra space on their home so that they can store more stuff. And actually sometimes I wonder if it would be much better to first of all review the amount of stuff and reduce the amount of stuff, and then maybe not actually create as big an extension, or use that space in a different way and get more of your money's worth out of that, or not spend, you know, the full amount of your budget and then use your money to enjoy your life in other ways. That's a bit unusual for an architect to say that perhaps, but I don't believe that it's necessary to spend all your money to get the biggest house and that is what's going to necessarily improve your life. It's not just about having lots more space. There are lots of other things to it. So something that I'm doing in my home to sort of achieve this less cluttered life is to go around my home once a week and look to remove 5 items from each room once a week. So and by the end of the year I expect that should add up to around 1,820 items that I will have removed from my home in that process. And I'm hoping that by the end of doing that, my home will actually be a lot easier to manage. Certainly things like children's toys are a real bugbear, and they take up a lot of space and they create a lot of mess, and that takes up a lot of time and effort in tidying up after them. So I'm also looking at some rotation systems where I don't have as many toys out at once, and so that the toys are more refreshed regularly, and my little boy can enjoy those toys more and not feel overwhelmed by how many toys are in the space. and I don't have to tidy up as much. So then the next thing that Helen noted in her, as they were looking around homes, was that they keep their homes nice all the time. They don't just have a quick tidy up before visitors come round. They're actually permanently clean and tidy. And this, maybe that's a bit of a, I don't know if that's a bit of an English thing. It's certainly something that I probably guilty of, and everybody in my family is possibly guilty of, that people are coming around, best tidy up and have a bit of as deep a clean as possible in the time I've got before they arrive, rather than just consistently keeping on top of it. And so one method that I've come across in the last couple of years that seems to be quite a good way of managing all that sort of cleaning the house stuff is the Fly Lady system, where you set yourself up with morning and afternoon, if you're a stay-at-home mum maybe, and evening routines where you do certain things daily to keep on top of things, and then as you go through the week and the month you have like certain zones of your house that you give a bit more of a deep clean to, so you're constantly on a rota going around your home and doing certain things every month, and in effect you're maintaining the cleanliness of your home throughout for all the time, and you don't need to worry if somebody's coming out around. It's all already pretty tidy and you don't need to worry about it. That sounds like quite a nice thing to me. I don't have that implemented, but it seems like a good solution. And then another tactic that Danes have with maintaining cleanliness in their home is to remove their shoes at the front door, so you're not walking through your home with shoes that are bringing in dirt and dust from outside. So you take your shoes off at the front door, you have a nice system where you stack them all up and keep them there by the front door ready to put back on again when you go out. But then when you're inside, you maybe have a nice cozy pair of socks or slippers and you just wear those inside, and then you're keeping all your dirt and dust at your front entrance at the most, and not bringing that in. And when there's so many people who suffer from allergies and sort of inflammatory kind of respiratory conditions like asthma, and a lot of these things, having less dust and toxins being brought in from outside is a really good thing. So doing that, removing your shoes, is a really simple way that you can help reduce that dust and dirt and help you with your home. Another thing that Helen picked up was that the Danes have a preference for sort of sleek, smart, wipe clean design. So wall hung toilets with the concealed cisterns, that's the water tank, hidden behind the wall, so they're really easy to clean. Built-in wardrobes, lighting being a big thing, lighting that looks like it's from a gallery, and then apparently they don't have very many baths because they consider showering to be more hygienic. I don't know if that's the case, whether it really is. I know that the Japanese have a lot of traditions of baths, and then if you look everywhere, there are lots of different cleaning traditions. So how you deal with your bathroom, there's maybe some cultural elements to that. But certainly, apparently in Denmark, they tend to not have baths and tend to go for showers, more of it. So what was really interesting reading through this book was how the Danish happiness, they're the happiest people on the planet apparently, and what different things could be impacting on them and helping them be that happy. And one of the conclusions was that actually good quality design does play a part in the Danish happiness. The Danish aesthetic is really influenced by the German Bauhaus movement, which was around in the 1920s, and that time, going back post-war, there was an economic recession, and the Danish government made good design a really high priority, and they saw it as being really important to people's well-being and happiness. And wouldn't it be lovely if our government implemented some sort of schemes that were really more about everybody's well-being and happiness? I'm not sure. I am not convinced that they're doing that at the moment. They're a bit too preoccupied by Brexit. But anyway, Brexit aside, so the Danish government recognised that that was the case, and that's what they promoted. And then more recently, in 2011, the University of UCL, University of Central London or City of London, confirmed that for people, looking at something beautiful can make you feel happier because it stimulates dopamine in your brain. So dopamine is a chemical response, and it's a chemical that makes you feel happy. And they've discovered that great art and design can induce the same kind of brain activity as being in love. So I think that's really beautiful. So if you can make your home literally more beautiful and pleasurable for you to look at, you will feel like you're in love, and who doesn't want to feel like that? So some of the big Danish design talents are Arne Jacobsen, who designed the egg chair, Paul Henningsen, who is a lighting designer, Hans Wegner and Finn Newell, who are furniture makers. Now, I can't off the top of my head think of equivalent English designers, but there are plenty of really good designers. And one of the really interesting things that came out of this was that the Danes spend more money per capita on furniture than any other nationality, which is kind of incredible. And what they try to do is they buy something that's going to last them for many, many years, and that they can pass on down to their children. So basically they're creating heirlooms, and they like to support local brands and buy things that are handmade locally. And they believe that good design is something to celebrate and to be proud of. And I think that's a really great thing that we can all, in the UK, we can also take that on board and seek out local designers and local makers and buy those beautiful things that they make, and really support local economy. It's really much more sustainable, especially if you're looking at really natural fabrics and natural materials. And we can support and be proud of you know, local crafts and local makers as well. I am getting a little bit confused with my notes where I'm up to. Oh, here we go. So the editor of the interior design magazine, the biggest Danish interior design magazine, which is called Bo Bedre. I may completely be pronouncing all these Danish names totally wrong. I've no idea. Apologies if I am. So she suggested that for anybody who wants to create the Danish look, that you should keep things really, really simple and just start with a few key items, mix and match those in with the things that you already have. And the 5 key items that she recommends for people looking to create this Danish aesthetic, and it's not just a Danish aesthetic, it's also a Danish way of life. And the first thing is a big wooden dining table, and this is for not just for having all your daily meals at, but also just for spending time sitting around it and chatting with friends and family. And the second thing she said is to have at least 8 chairs around that dining table. So it's a really big dining table, so that you can entertain a full group of friends or family. Now, 8 people sat around a big table, that tends to need quite a bit of space. So that's worth considering. If this is something that you like to do, you like to entertain, and you want to be able to seat 8 or more people, then you need to make sure you've got a space that's big enough to do that. And then the third thing that she recommended was to get a handcrafted chair, perhaps like an Arne Jacobsen or Hans Wegner or a Borger Morgensen. I don't know any of these designers. I'm going to look them up. Arne Jacobsen, I know. Everybody, well, as far as I know, everybody has heard of Arne Jacobsen, but the others, Hans Wegner and Borg Morgensen, I don't know them. I'm going to have a look at those. So, but I do know that there are lots of local companies that make chairs and make tables, and you could equally buy something that's made from somebody more local to you. It doesn't have to be a Danish designer, but you could stick with that sort of Danish aesthetic by buying things that are made of really more natural materials like wood, leather if you're not vegan, wool equally if you're not vegan, hemp perhaps if you're vegan, or organic cotton. So the fourth key piece to look for is to get a designer lamp, perhaps like Poul Henningsen's PH or a Arne Jacobsen AJ. And apparently the Cubus candle holder, which I again have no idea what that looks like, but it's supposed to be something that everybody in Denmark has one of these. And then the fifth thing is to get some Royal Copenhagen dining plates. So again, I don't know what they look like. I'm really curious. I will go and have a look and find some pictures of these things. So, one of the key things that you need to be looking at is your lighting, and so positioning your lighting, where it's positioned, and the sorts of fixtures and fittings that you have. Having a variety of lights, not just having one light in the middle, a pendant light, but perhaps having a pendant light and some floor lamps and some table lamps, so that you're creating pools of light around the room rather than one one sort of more general light, and that can create much more atmosphere when you, and the ability to change the way it looks by switching on different combinations of lights. And then to sort of feel more cozy, having throws and blankets and lots of cushions on your sofa is a really good way of like getting that cozy feeling on your sofa. And apparently Danes often have a separate summer and winter set of cushions, which makes sense. You know, you might want to have something more wool based and fluffy for the winter, and then maybe something a bit cooler, more organic cotton or something for the summer. And you can also change up the colours. They're a good way of introducing some colours, especially if you do go for this sort of white walls and bleached wooden floor look. Then you can bring some colour and change up the colour really easily and quickly by changing your cushions on your sofa. As I said, that's not really something that I do. I like a lot more colour than that. So I like a bit of colour on the wall, and I like colour in the cushions and the rug as well. So another thing that so some of the quotes that were quoted in the book, coming from different sort of experts in Danish design and interior design, especially, that Helen talked with in her research for her book, were that functional yet beautiful design is essential to realising the good life. And if you surround yourself with quality design, it can influence your mood. And if your surroundings are nice, we feel cozy and safe, and it makes us feel happier. So these are some like really interesting things that we can incorporate. And I don't have lots of designer pieces. I absolutely love designer pieces. And yeah, you know, those are things that we know it's worth saving up for, instead of spending like lots of money in small amounts on lots of different things, but saving up your money and buying, you know, a really good quality piece that's going to last your entire lifetime and that you could pass on to your children in the future. I think that is a really sensible way of spending money, and it's going to get you much better quality furniture in the long run. And if you can do that, supporting local designers and local makers to you, then you're going to be helping make your local economy more sustainable. You're going to be doing better for reducing CO2 in terms of transport, of materials to different people, and also of the furniture to you from somewhere else. So if you get buying things locally from people who've made them locally, that is really the best strategy for a more sustainable approach to buying furniture. Actually, if you buy second-hand furniture or more vintage furniture, if it's good quality and it's lasted time, that can also be a really good way of getting yourself really good quality furniture. And that it's the quality, you can really feel quality. It feels different when you sit down on a good quality chair. It sounds different as well, so it's worth really like using all of your senses when you're in a space. What does it smell like? What does it sound like? What's the touch of it? How does it feel in your hands and your body? And the temperature of the space, how does it feel within that? And you can get all these different sensations with different materials, and all of that really adds to the quality of the space that you surround yourself with. And you can really adapt that space and make it sensations that you really like. For example, I really love the feel of wool and silk. I really don't like the feel of polyester. It's something about touching it just goes through me, and I really can't stand it. And I know you may, if you might not have consciously sensitive to that, but if you start thinking about these things, you may find that you have a material that you have a preference for, and then you can really start to enjoy your space even more if you're using more materials, more things of that sort of material. So some of the things that were really interesting were the relationship between the Danes' consideration for the environment. So some of their approaches anyway are really eco-friendly. So the idea of buying fewer things but really good quality things that will last, that's a much more eco-friendly approach. Equally, buying or having things that are of natural materials, wood and so on. Wood is probably the most sustainable material, but then sort of recycled materials and all these other things you can get. But those focus on that is really important. And then this sort of idea of making your home really, the envelope of your home, especially the doors and windows, to be really good quality so that you're not losing a lot of heat and you're not suffering from lots of drafts. That is a really eco-friendly approach to that you can incorporate in your home. So another thing that's really a really key thing, and it's something that, you know, it can be a real pain actually in making the space for this. And where do you have space for this? Whether you have it in your kitchen or whether you do it in your utility room, but that is recycling. And we all, you know, there's the idea of like there's the zero waste movement, where you have like the 5 R's, where you reduce, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot, as opposed to the 3 R's, which is reduce, reuse, reduce, recycle. So but you can go that extra step further and sort of limit the amount of waste that comes in with you from the outset. So for example, if you're shopping in the supermarket, you can pick up loose fruit and veg and put that straight into a cotton bag, as opposed to picking up a plastic bag. I know it's not always that straightforward. I personally try very hard when I'm going around supermarkets to limit the amount of plastic that I'm buying, but honestly, it's really, I mean, as individuals, it's really quite difficult to do very much about it, and we really need to put pressure on the supermarkets and on the bigger organisations to get them to reduce the amount of packaging that they put stuff in, so that it's much easier for us to not have to buy so much stuff with so much packaging. But anyway, once you've got all that packaging home, what do you do with it? You need to have some way of sorting it out, putting it in the right containers, so that then you can put it out in the right bins, so that then hopefully, depending on your local authority, that stuff is then going to go somewhere and be recycled, and, you know, not just go into landfill or get burnt. So the Danes are actually really obsessive apparently about recycling, and they recycle 90% of the packaging that they have. They see being eco-friendly as a sort of a basic duty and something that you just do to be a part of Danish society. And I think this is starting to be the case a lot in the UK as well. I mean, I know a lot of people recycle. Whether we recycle as much as we could, that's maybe we can all do a little bit better at that. The Danish government has set themselves targets like the UK. The UK government has also set targets, but as I said earlier, I think they're a little bit distracted with other things going on. But the Danish government is looking to reduce their CO2 emissions by 40% by 2020. I believe the UK government has a very similar target actually. Whether we're on track to achieve that though is a different matter. And the Danish government are always also hoping to have a Denmark without waste by 2050, and they hope that by that point everything will be reused or recycled. So that's a really ambitious target. I think that in the UK we're anywhere near that, but I mean it would be great to be able to say that. Apparently the Danes are on track to achieve those goals. The other area that the Danes are really strong in is in renewable energy, and they have apparently the most competitive clean power industry in the world, and 30% of their electricity is wind generated. Now in the UK we are also doing pretty well on the wind generated power, and there have been several days in the year when as far as I understand it 100% of our electricity needs have been met. As a nation, a nation's electricity needs have been met just by renewable energy alone, and that's something that I think we can be proud of and really start to support and make more efforts in those directions. But the Danes are doing really well, and it'd be great to be able to emulate them more. In 2013 they won the World Wildlife Fund Award for the gift to the earth, which is quite a sweet title for an award. I don't know what they did to get that, but anyway, that's quite a sweet award. And then they got 2 years running, they were voted the most climate friendly country by the United Nations Climate Change Performance Index. I don't know where we stand in the UK on that. If you've got any information about that, then I'd love to know. Please let us know. So in terms of what I'm doing to reduce my heat loss and to improve the sustainability of the heat that generate in my home, I have added more insulation to my roof. In fact, we got a completely new roof put on just a year ago, and I added quite a lot of a completely different build-up of insulation to help with reducing airflow through the house and with reducing heat loss through the roof, and that has really actually made a big difference. It's a lot more comfortable and a lot less drafty as a whole in this house. I've also installed a wood burning stove, and at the moment I'm mostly burning wood that is from trees that I've chopped down in the garden. But I've got a little hazelnut tree that the squirrels have kindly planted, and it's getting to a decent size, and I've chopped it down once because I wanted to get rid of it, and it's grown back again. And if you know anything about hazelnut trees, it's something that I'm sort of learning more about, but they are very sort of traditionally were one of the trees that people used to coppice. And coppicing is where you cut down a tree right down close to the base of it, and then it grows back into lots of trunks. So it's not just one central trunk of a tree, it will end up being lots of trunks. And then every 5 to 7 years, you go back and do that again. So you get these lots and lots of wood that's generated from that same tree, and it's a really sustainable way to create firewood. And you can use hazel for lots of different things, for like basket weaving and all these sorts of amazing things that I don't know a huge amount about, but I'm sort of aware of. But this is something that I'm starting to do. In your average garden, a hazelnut tree doesn't take up a huge amount of space, and they're really pretty. They've got lovely catkins in the winter, which are really lovely to look at, and it's a bit different. It's something that you know, at that time of year there's not a huge lot of interest in the garden, and so the catkins are really really nice to look at. And then it gives you certain amount of firewood that you can use. Obviously you have to cut it, you have to dry it, there's effort involved in doing that, but it's a really sustainable way of feeding your wood burning stove. And you know, I personally don't use a wood burning stove on a daily basis. It's usually just when it's really cold. So that's one thing that I'm doing to create more sustainable, renewable heat inside my home. If you've got any ideas and thoughts that you're having for your home, and you want to run that past me, then please do. And if you have any comments to make about this, I'd love to hear what you have to say. And I really recommend this book, The Year of Living Danishly. It's got some it's really well written, it's a lovely read, and quite humorous and interesting to hear, you know, what how people live in Denmark, and that there's so many things that are quite similar to the UK, and it's really subtle differences really, so it's really interesting to read. I definitely recommend it. I will be back again next Friday with another video, and if you would like to get some of my help with your home, I can certainly help you in a variety of ways. The first way that you could get my help for free would be to get hold of a copy of the Design Your Home Vision checklist, which you can download. I'll put that in the description box above, so that you can go directly to the link for that, and that will help you to really kind of gather all the stuff that you need to get in place to really start off your project in the right direction, and it really gives you the best chance of success for getting the home that you would really love to have. Look forward to speaking to you again next Friday. Bye for now.